Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Courtney Yockey, and I am with the Effingham Regional Growth Alliance, and here today representing the Business Navigator Alliance of Southcentral and Southeastern Illinois. We have a great presentation in store for you. This webinar is part one of a three-part webinar series on business resiliency. As we all know, businesses have been through a lot over the past few years, and COVID was quite discriminative to the types of businesses that it affected. Today, we are diving into the tourism industry, where we will hear from three regional businesses on the shifts and pivots they made to navigate the pandemic and how they are pushing through recovery. Starting us off, we'll have Kim Jansen with the Effingham Performance Center, touching on their pivot to intense customer relationship management. Then Susan Gwinnett with the Gaslight Art Colony, discussing their shift to an online presence and now reintroducing workshops. And then Kristen Chittick of the Paris Center of Fine Arts, taking us through their engagement practices while empty. Then we'll hear customer service best practices and action plans for business owners from customer service expert Dawn Mushill. So what is the Business Navigator Alliance of Southcentral and Southeastern Illinois? We are a 6-county regional collaboration working through a small business community navigator grant. The collaboration consists of Angela Griffin with Coles Together, Lori Miner with the Sullivan, Illinois Chamber and Economic Development, Risa Shaner with the Crawford County Development Association, Nora Swalls with the Marshall Area Chamber of Commerce, Bob Coven and Freddie Schmitty with the Paris Economic Development Corporation, and myself, Courtney Yockey, with the Effingham Regional Growth Alliance. This group is charged with professional outreach and technical assistance for local, state, and federal programs. Our mission is to ensure that small businesses in our region are competitive and applying for necessary resources, and our goal is to position you for success by accelerating business recovery and growth. See the map on the side of your screen for where the Business Navigator Alliance is located. Today's webinar is actually a series of business webinars that we're hosting each month. These webinars are scheduled for the last Thursday of each month, so please mark your calendars. Visit www.ilbusinessnavigators.com, that's navigators with an S, and sign up for our newsletter, stay informed. We also host various outreach events, office hours, and offer one-on-one technical assistance. Again, visit ilbusinessnavigators.com to learn more. We will post a recording from today's presentation and additional supportive materials on the website as well. To start us off, we have Kim Jansen. Kim, are you prepared to present?
Yes. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I am Kim Jansen. I am the Executive Director of Arts Connection of Central Illinois, which is the non-for-profit group that operates the Effingham Performance Center. A lot of people are familiar with the Effingham Performance Center, but they may not be aware that it is operated by a non-for-profit group, like I said, called Arts Connection of Central Illinois. The Effingham Performance Center is a 118-seat theater. So of course, when a pandemic strikes, it makes it a little hard to do business. So one thing that we had to do was focus on our customer service. And I'll kind of take you through what happened to us as an organization, which led us to the shift with our customer service. So with that, let's take a look at our timeline. All right, so the first thing on our timeline, March 11th, 2022, REO Speedwagon was at the Effingham Performance Center for a sold-out show. REO is one of our favorite bands. We love having here. We have a great time. So perfect show, great night, full house. The very next day on March 12th, the governor announced that he'd be restricting events down to 1,000 people. We had a show go coming up that Saturday, so this was on Thursday. We had a sigh of relief almost though, because we were presenting the coasters on Saturday and I had not yet sold 1,000 tickets. I'd only sold like 800 and some. So almost that sigh of relief, like, okay, this is for large events. This isn't necessarily going to affect our events. This is just for the ones that are the 20,000 and 30,000 events. And we're going to go ahead and get through this. Of course, the very next day on March 13th, everything changed again. The governor mandated it down to less than 50 people. or building occupancy less than 50%. So at that point, we recognized that we were going to have to postpone our show on Saturday and then figure out what was happening moving forward. And it was definitely a time of uncertainty for us in the event industry to figure out how long these mandates were going to last, what it was going to look like, and how it was going to affect our business model. So again, March 14th, 2020, we did go ahead and make the decision to postpone the coasters. And then on March 21st of 2020, that's when things even took a more serious turn with the mandates, as far as we were all ordered to shelter in place. So at that time, we did what all businesses did. We packed up our offices, we sent our employees home, and we started to strategize what this was going to mean for our industry, for our shows, and what we're going to do moving forward. So at that time, we were in season 10. We were almost through season 10. We had 10 shows left on our calendar that would have ran March, April, and May. And then we take the summer off where we have our theater camps and stuff. So we had 10 shows sitting there. And at the same time, we'd already booked shows for season 11, which had ran the following year. So we were starting to have these shows kind of piggyback on top of each other. We, of course, had tickets sold to the 10 shows that were already on sale. And we really had to start looking at what we were going to do for our customers. So if I'm going to flip to the next slide, we definitely, as an organization, wanted to build confidence that, first of all, we were still here. Second of all, the tickets that you had purchased were good, that you're going to be able to use those tickets. And then also, we didn't want to look dark. We didn't want to look like we were going out of business. Like I said, it was very important for us to build confidence in our brand and to also keep our patrons informed about what was happening with their show and what was happening with the tickets they had purchased. And the tricky part is, at that time, we really had no idea what was happening, because like everybody else, we were just trying to figure it out. We had talked to our touring artists. We had talked to all the people. We knew we could reschedule. But again, we didn't know if we were scheduling 1 month out or 6 months out or 12 months out or 2 years out. And what we came to learn, since we've been through it now, is it was a little bit of all those things. We had some shows that were rescheduled 5 times. We had one show that was rescheduled 1 time. So it just kind of depended on how the routing and scheduling went, how we managed it. But to make it look like we were not going dark and to stay just connected and with not only our ticket holders, but also our community, we started having events. So the first thing we did, the library hosted an annual children's art show. Well, of course, with social distancing, the art show was scheduled to take place, but there was no way to have that art show because we weren't allowed to go out into groups. So we took that art show, we put it on our marquee, and parents could come, sit in our parking lot, have kind of this drive-through art show where they're able to see their children's artwork from our marquee. And it was a great way to get kids out of the house, to give parents something to do, and to show that we were staying active and that we were looking to move forward. The next thing we did is, in July, we offered movies in the parking lot. We had the socially distanced concept. So we had gone out there, we put up a video wall on a stage in our parking lot, and then we mapped out basically these little pod squares that you could buy. You brought your own lawn chairs, you brought your own, like I said, own drinks, own snacks, all those things, and you could watch a movie in our parking lot. So that was in July. In August, we went ahead and started doing the fan pods and doing some inside shows. So the concept there was, we found shows that needed like a 400 or less audience to be successful. So we looked at movies, looked at regional entertainers, and we created this fan pod concept where you could purchase tickets with the people you were socially distancing with. And then there was 2 seats empty to your left, 2 seats empty to your right. The row in front of you is empty and the row behind you is empty. So we were able to safely have indoor events having that fan pod concept. We changed the access to the theater, how you got in and out of the theater, and had done a lot of things to make sure we were staying safe through that. So other ideas we had an online auction. I think every non-for-profit had an online auction, and we auctioned off really cool stuff. We auctioned off a lifetime supply of popcorn. We auctioned off birthday parties on our stage. We auctioned off follow our house photographer for a night. So things like that that were kind of unusual and very unique to our venue. Again, like all non-for-profits, we applied for grants and more grants. So grants and more grants. And I know we were all in that boat, especially as non-for-profits. And then the last thing we did, we really focused on amazing customer service. So my first advice with customer service, it comes down to who is on your team. You have to make sure that your team understands the expectations for customer service, especially in times there's lots of questions. You have to make sure we all have the same message when it comes to customer service. And we all, most importantly, have the right attitude when it comes to customer service. During COVID, it was a very stressful time, but I didn't want patrons calling and getting our ticket agents and feeling that stress from them. So we made sure everybody was very informed with what was happening with all of our shows so we could put our patrons at ease. So some of the things we did for our customer service is, first of all, we used our website and our social media. So we did that. That's a great way to keep in contact, obviously. We also did targeted emails to the people who had purchased tickets for certain shows. So lots of targeted emails. We also did bulk text messaging right to our patrons. And then we went as far to our ticketing agents made one-on-one phone calls with all of our ticket holders. So when did we do these things? We did these things a lot. So we had 10 shows, plus we had about 11 that we had to end up rescheduling as well. So every time we postponed a show, it went on our website, it went on our social media, it went out in a text, it went out through an email, and they also got a personal phone call. Every time we set a new date for that show, same list of things would happen. Every time the original show date would come, we want people to be confused and come to our building. So again, we put that message back out there. Show week, same idea. Hey, this Saturday, your show's coming. Don't forget. Because a lot of people had printed tickets and the date on their ticket wasn't actually the correct date, but it still scanned you in to get into the show. So we had to make sure people understood that as well. But the tickets they had, even though it was the wrong date, it was still good for that show. And then of course on day of show, we made sure we made a big splash. So that happened several times just to make sure that our patrons were confident in our product. They were confident their show was going to happen. We obviously offered different refund policies depending on what was happening. We had some people who were not comfortable coming to COVID or to shows because of COVID. And we actually had the opposite too. We had people who didn't want to come to shows because they didn't want to wear a mask. So we definitely had to recognize all spectrums of how people were feeling during that time. And we also had to respect those feelings and making sure they were comfortable with their purchasing decision. I am happy to report that a lot of them did hold on to their tickets. So moving forward, what you saw 10 is season 10, we have printed in all 10 of our shows. Season 11, we have completed 9 of the 12 shows. We had to cancel one because of weather. One kind of just no longer went out again after COVID. And then we have one more Clay Walker coming up in September. So season 12, we were able to complete all of the shows this last season. So for a total of 58 shows presented in 11 months is what we have done. We also just announced season 13 actually this week. So if you haven't gotten a chance yet, make sure you go to theepc.org or our Facebook page. The new season was announced yesterday. Public sale opens up on August 20th. And again, we have a variety of shows for everybody. And what we have found through the pandemic, through our customer service is, first of all, we've been able to really tailor our team to meet our expectations. We've been through a lot together as an organization. And as a result, it's definitely that team feeling because we've all kind of been on the front lines doing the different things. And I'm happy to say most of the patrons, even if their show was scheduled 5 times, for instance, that they had bought a ticket to Lone Star in the summer of 2019. A lot of them had that ticket here a few months ago, 2 years later, to watch that show. So I think our strategies were successful. Like everybody else, we were kind of shooting in the dark in a lot of ways, but we did find success as an organization. So that's what we have about customer service.
Excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you for your
Yep.
insight into the EPC and what you guys did to navigate uncertain times, most certainly, and how you continue to strive forward. Just a quick note to those that are watching today's presentation here live. If you have a question, please throw it in the chat. After the presenters today, we'll enter into a Q&A section and run through the questions that are in the chat. And we have some questions that were submitted ahead of time. We'll continue on. Up next, we have Susan with the Gaslight Art Colony. Susan, are you ready to present?
I'm ready. Thank you, Courtney. I am Susan Gwinnett, and I am on the board of the Gaslight Art Colony and have been for about 9 years. It's an all-volunteer board, and I have a couple of our volunteers with me here today. Joe Rich Fadis is right here. She's, I call her our chief volunteer, curator, resident art guru, and one of the founders of the Gaslight Art Colony. And on any given day, you can find Joe in here if you have questions or calls or just want to come in and browse. Also, Alice Pine's behind me, and Alice grew up in Mushill and moved back a few years ago, and is an accomplished artist and is now on our board too. So we're very lucky to have a wide variety of people who can offer their expertise. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Gaslight Art Colony, kind of our background, what we did during COVID, and as well as giving you some ideas of how we try to enrich and enhance the art experiences here in the county. And the pictures too are pictures that are from past shows here. So our history, the Gaslight Art Colony opened its doors October 17th of 2009. And I would say it's pretty frequently we get comments about, you know, we're small, but how impressive it is. And it's always a very impressive display of the talent that's in our area. Okay. The gallery openings showcase local, but also some international artists. And almost always they have a strong tie to the Mushill area. The Gaslight is a little different than a lot of other organizations because we don't receive money from any place else, you know, no public funds at all. Some of the ways that we get money, probably the big thing is through fundraisers, which during COVID was non-existent. Membership dues, and we have over about 120 members right now. Grants, some grants. We got the Back to Business grant this year, and art classes and workshops. And we do pay our teachers who teach those classes. And then through the member artwork, and 25% of those sales go to the art colony, 75% to the member. But overall, initially and continuing, our goal is to promote awareness of and participation and understanding of the arts. Okay, next. Okay. Now, we're talking about customer service, and we know that in order to have customer service, you have to be able to get people through the door. And so we promote very similar to the way the Effingham Performance Center and the Paris Art Center do, but some unique things about us. Probably one of the best ways is just through our regular shows. And we generally have 10 shows during the year. We have a yearly children's art show, twice yearly member show. The last couple of years, we've had a fiber art show. So that could be paper, could be wood, majority of some kind of fabric or yarns or wool. We've had a side-by-side show for a couple of years, and that's where one person takes a photo of a subject and the other person interprets that subject in some type of artistic way. And then we've also collaborated with the county for their bicentennial celebration a couple of years ago. In promoting, we do have a web page, and if you are interested in more information, gaslightartcolony.com is a good place to go to see that, find out what you need to know. We also have a strong Facebook presence, and that's probably true of everybody else, and especially during COVID, that was pretty important. But we also do use the newspapers frequently, letters, the radio some, so just all types of media, and of course, word of mouth. In my opinion, one of the biggest things we've done to promote the arts in the community, though, is just by working with the community and local organizations. The Chamber of Commerce a few years ago decided they wanted to place lions throughout the city and approached the Gaslight Art Colony about painting those. And I think to date, we're at about 43 lions that we've painted, which is about 96% of the lions in the city. So come to look at the lions, most of them have been done by members. So through the pandemic hit us hard, just like as Kim had mentioned earlier, and I know Kristen will say too, it was tough for us. Our last major fundraiser was just a few days before everything shut down in March. All of our monthly shows were canceled. The classes and workshops were canceled. The Gaslight was closed, which meant that all the day-to-day operations, what could be done was done by volunteers, usually Joe. But then as things started to open up and let up a little bit, we were able to do a few things that were just a little bit different. Probably the biggest were the virtual shows. Instead of having in-person where people could come and view the artwork, it was videoed, and the artists were interviewed, and then it was available to view at the same time, or that people could come back and view that later on. And actually it worked out. We had at least one show where several pieces of art were sold. So that was very successful. Then in 21, slowly getting back to it, we had 8 shows in 2021 and a few classes. We introduced the holiday premiere last winter. And that was different in that everything that was on display was also for sale. Generally, in most of our shows, some of the things are for sale, but not all of them. And it was especially unique because we had a lot of people come in that don't generally come in for just one of the artist shows. So it was very successful, and we're going to try to do that again this fall. And then in 2022, at the beginning of this year, we had an online auction that went extremely well. We had not done that before. We worked with one of the local auctioneers to coordinate that. So customer service, how we stay engaged, and we all know that once we get them, we have to keep them. And so now, and I think for all of us, it'll be a little bit harder since COVID's passed. Some people are going to be complacent. I don't know if I really need to do that, but we're going to try to keep them coming. So we've already had 28 art classes this year. So we're hoping to get close to the 55 or 60 that we had at our peak before COVID. We are going to do our holiday premiere again. And like I said, that brings in a totally different group of people than we typically get with a regular show. The online auction we are going to do again. It will be after the first of the year. We had a spot at the farmer's market, at the first farmer's market, because that's new in Mushill and it's right in front of the art colony. So we're looking forward to ways to further implement that in years to come. we're back to fundraisers and had a picnic in the art. So had for $10, somebody could buy a charcuterie box. They had to walk into the art colony though, view our side-by-side show, and take that home and eat it. And it was very successful. And then our coloring and activity book has just been completed and is for sale. We were very fortunate to have received funding from Jerry Forsyth, who's a local philanthropist. And with that, we're hoping to reach out more further to young people, help encourage their creativity, raise a little bit of money, and a renewed awareness of who we are, because we want to keep those people coming through the door. So I would encourage all of you to visit our webpage. Even better, visit the art colony. We are on the north side of the courthouse on Archer Avenue in Mushill, Illinois. We do have lots of classes and workshops. Anybody is welcome to be a member. If you do not have to be an artist to be a member. And we would really encourage anybody who's interested to come to the show and see what we have. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent presentation, Susan, and great to hear that you're starting to rebuild those art classes, and sounds like you're getting close to pre-pandemic levels. And thanks for sharing with us how you continue to engage the community and beyond your community, introduce arts, and then good to hear the fundraisers have been going well this year.
They have. Thank you.
And just a quick note to those that are viewing today's webinar, if you have a question for Susan or for Kim or any of the panelists that you're going to hear from today, please put it in the chat and we'll address it after the presentations to the Q&A section. Up next, we have Kristen with the Paris Center of Fine Arts. Kristen, are you ready to present?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much, Courtney. I appreciate it. Those were great presentations. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we did also while we were empty, but a brief history of this lovely theater, as you see a picture of, is it's a 500-seat proscenium arch theater that is just approaching its 7th year, but there is a rich legacy. In the 1960s, a theater-loving family developed a trust with an unselfish vision of a local theater. When their last heir died, those monies became available in partnership with our 2 school districts, 2 referendums, and state legislative efforts to join on the campus of the new Paris Cooperative High School, this beautiful state-of-the-art Paris Center of Fine Arts. Next, please. When COVID began, the high school drama students were just 2 weeks away from their opening night, and the Paris Center of Fine Arts Oversight Committee, or PCOFA, had just 1 show left for our professional season. As COVID lingered, the PCOFA knew we had to change our strategy, but not our vision. We addressed that in 4 different ways. Next slide. So first, of course, our patrons, which is how we even exist. Our mission in part is to enrich our culture with live entertainment. So as a board, we did not opt to invest in live stream equipment, but we did launch a program we entitled Arts in the Interim. And this program took off on social media because we featured local artists on Facebook. So that included guitar players, singers, visual art demonstrations, and even a walking visual tour in the local art gallery. Engagement on this by our community was surprisingly high. As COVID requirements began to ease, the PCOFA decided to host a free thank you concert outdoors for our patrons. It was great. I'll give a plug to the Brat Pack out of Champaign. They were great performers with authentic 80s music and hilarious antics. We brought in a stage and food trucks and beverage trucks and even an ice cream truck for a real festive evening. The hope of this thank you concert was to encourage people to come back to the theater as our rescheduled and again rescheduled season approached. When we opened our doors for the first time in 18 months, we still needed to be sensitive to hesitancy and patron safety. We had masks imprinted with our logo, here we are, to encourage people to come back, and we handed them out as they were entering the building. Next slide. Our second strategy focused on artists, which is what our patrons want. We continually communicated with the artists and their agents. I felt like we needed to honor their livelihood and them personally. 99% of the artists were unemployed in this country. One artist told me he had friends who had lost their homes. When our conversations focused on reschedule and not cancel in the midst of the pandemic, they were relieved and grateful. The PCOFA just shifted all of our season to similar dates a year later, including the ones we had to reschedule more than once. Acts, writers, and technical requests morphed somewhat as the season progressed. For example, a solo act booked in 2019 ended up bringing their entire band in 2022. That prompted some hospitality changes on our part by needing more hotel rooms, which with a national cross-country meet that weekend, all advanced booking were booked. So we ended up housing the band in my sister-in-law's house and nobody complained. We do have a vision, we have a mission, and my mantra to our community is I take suggestions. Our season schedules are largely generated by community requests of artists and or genres that they tell us through surveys or drop-ins to my office. PCOFA's booking team on the board listens to patrons, searches artists, and negotiates with agents to provide as many of those patron requests as we can afford and schedule. Our third strategy, next slide, was the board, which is who serves our patrons. That third strategic shift was by the PCOFA board, or honestly, they're termed the oversight committee. When we posted the local artists' performances, the local artists on social media, we also posted the board bios. Again, patrons were really attentive to that. The oversight committee membership is also a legacy from that original trust. Their individual skill sets are diverse and include representatives from the city council, both school districts, the historical society, the local art gallery, philanthropic organizations of Kiwanis and Rotary, as well as members from the community at large. We currently have a volunteer who is a semi-retired conductor. So essentially, I'm governed by 6 boards, and we're called a committee of the city. It's complicated, but it works. These different perspectives and skills of each oversight committee member serves the community well in supporting the arts, which is their passion. When we couldn't have a donor honor dinner, which was going to be an awesome bootleggers ball for the roaring 2020s, and then it switched to the roaring 2021s, and then we stalled at the roaring 2022s, we instead delivered boxes of delicious and musically decorated thank you cookies to our donors, each of them. They loved them. In addition, this board has worked to learn the lingo and the logistics required for all phases of presenting artists. As a board, we financially assist the school district with theater upgrades and maintenance. The interest from our endowment serves that need annually. Next slide. So the final strategy had to do with the manager. That's me. I am the sole staff member. The rest are contractor, volunteer, tech people, potentially. But it was a pivot point to all 3 strategic shifts that I've already mentioned. My background is music therapy. Experience in that profession cemented my awareness of the value of music for our human condition. As the fine arts manager, pivot became my middle name with the pandemic. Grant writing, as Kim said, was now a major role. Grants were opportunities, and I appreciated that neighboring theater managers and directors became gracious mentors and oftentimes late night sounding boards as we all tackled grant requirements during the pandemic. Theater professionals from EIU, Rose-Hulman, Indiana State University, and the Little Theater on the Square have collaborated with PCOFA to teach some of our high school students hands-on basic sound and lighting technology in a summer workshop we call Making Theater Happen. These students then have the opportunity to be hired by the PCOFA to assist us with our professional shows. We recognize that every industry has trainings or meetings or conferences that require speakers to be seen and heard. For the students, learning these technology skills can translate to all industries, not just theater. For patrons, personal contact continued with phone calls, emails, letters, and social media. This community is also passionate about the arts, as exemplified by their donations, even when the doors were closed. Patrons are future thinking. Finally, our organization embarked on a new project to honor past patrons, coordinating with the school administrators and the local community foundation. The PCOFA this fall is unveiling a PCOFA Wall of Honor in the theater lobby for those who have gone on before us, but gave their all to this community and to the arts. And final slide. To quote an arts researcher, Colleen Dillon Schneider, with data collected during the pandemic, our competition now is the couch. I agree. So please encourage others to return to live entertainment, and thank you to Courtney Yockey and the Business Navigator Alliance for recognizing the importance of resiliency and the importance of supporting the arts.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you, Kristen. And to hear that you're governed by 6 boards, we're going to have to bring you back for a webinar on board management. And I'd have to say, I love seeing the picture of those cookies, that shift, sending the cookies to your donors, very creative, and they look delicious. So loved hearing the presentation and what you guys did. And yeah, we'll definitely need to contact you for a board management webinar.
Thank you.
And so if you have any questions, if you have a question for Kim, Susan, or Kristen, throw them in the chat and we'll address them. We are up to our next presentation, which is Dawn Mushill with Customer Service Beyond. Dawn, are you ready to present?
I am. Wow, you guys have been through a lot. I will tell you, I'm the director of the Chamber of Commerce in Troy, Maryville, St. Jacob, Marine, Illinois, 22 years. And it's been a tough 2.5 years for our businesses for sure, but you guys are so resilient. Wow, amazing. I mean, congratulations to all of you in industries that there's no way you could have people there. So today we're going to talk about some customer service best practices. I had a lot, I had a million. We selected a few. Courtney and I worked real hard on this one. So we're going to start with the first slide, which is marketing your business. And I know everybody thinks, oh, we already market, we already do that. But really, I'm just going to throw out some ideas. And every idea has an action plan. And I think Courtney's going to email those. I put them on, I believe, 3 sheets so that you can just look at them and make an action plan for yourself. All right, where are we going to start? We're going to start with managing online presence. If you have not ever looked at Google My Business, please do so. So go into Google and do Google My Business and put your business name. What's going to appear is what I have there for the chamber. I went ahead and did a screenshot of the chambers. It talks about your hours. It talks about your address. Do you have a menu? Do you have reviews? All of that information is important. Let me tell you what happened during the pandemic. People had other fish to fry. They didn't even know about Google Business. But what happens is I go to Google Business and it says you're open at noon, but because you're short staffed now, you're open at 4. It's so important. So there's an email address on there. Please make sure it works. And your Facebook link, please make sure it works. We have this on our marketing calendar once a month to check because there are reviews on there. Now, I will tell you on the reviews, you can ask it to email them to you as they come in, which is a really good idea. But a lot of people don't know about this, but this is really what drives everything when people search for you. So if we look at the next slide, we do have an action plan. So if you don't have Google My Business set up, please do so, because let me tell you what happens. Someone else is going to set it up for you and you're not going to like it. And so it's this odd thing that I guess people do it and then they try to sell back to you what they have. But actually, we're going to start a marketing checklist. So this is monthly. And how long is it really going to take? I mean, 30 seconds. It's a check mark. We just want to make sure everything's there, make sure everything's right. In the back of your head, if you have hours change for even a temporary time, I would get those on there. All right, next one we have social media platforms. Oh my gosh, we love it and we don't love it. Let me tell you, a lot of people are on Facebook. A lot of people are on Instagram. Facebook changes their algorithms. I did a blog the other day and said, if Facebook was one of our businesses and made as many changes as they did, they wouldn't have any customers, because you just can't even catch up with them. So on Facebook, if you know this, Instagram is also part of Facebook. If you do not know how to schedule posts, game changer. Let me talk about this. So our chamber has 450 members. We had 74 events in 2019. You can imagine the amount of massive stuff that we have going on. And I hear people say, oh, I don't have time for Facebook. This is what I do. This is my thing. You sit down on Sunday night and you schedule out all the Facebook. So you can go on there and say, I want this to appear on Tuesday morning at 8, and I want this one to appear on Thursday night at 6. And once you schedule them, you're done for the week. You're done. I mean, you can still add things to it, but we have 218 scheduled items as of today. I looked before I came on. And that for us as an intern going on, scheduling everything. And it's fantastic. Twitter can't schedule, but you have to know, is Twitter really your target market? So that's very important to know that. Snapchat, again, that's that younger generation. What are you looking for? What can you really do on Snapchat for your business? TikTok, I will tell you, I would have never thought chambers you'd use TikTok. I just left a ribbon cutting and got home to do this. And we did confetti, and we did the TikTok and the confetti, and it'll just be like the coolest TikTok ever. I would have never thought a chamber could do that. And we don't do that for everything we do, but it sure highlights that member. YouTube, if you don't have a YouTube channel, I really would recommend it. Now, Social Pilot, I want to tell you a little bit about that. So all of the items above Social Pilot are in one place. So if you get Social Pilot and you say, I want to talk, we're having a women's conference on September 9th. So I want to put it on 4 of those. I go into Social Pilot and they're all there, and it makes it just easier. It's like Hootsuite if you use that, but it's like a one-stop shop. We have a free version, and I went yesterday to see how much it was. Ours is free because we're nonprofit. So if you're nonprofit, I think you can do that. TechSoup.com. If you haven't been there in your nonprofit, you have to go there. Software, we get Adobe for $12.99 a month, I think. So the whole Adobe suite for $12.99 a month, and it's usually $69. They have some really good software, hardware deals there. But yeah, Social Pilot's on there. So these are just some ideas on the social media platform. The other thing I definitely want to say is, I know you're on social media, but that's not the end of all for everything. Grandma isn't, and we do our citywide garage sale, and grandma wants to come. She's not on Facebook, so we have to find the other ways. All right, next slide. And there's the top of our Facebook page. So all of those people at the top, by the way, are investors who have paid, like Gateway Regional Medical Center is a $10,000 a year investor. Hoylton is 5,000. It just goes on. So you can utilize your Facebook page for anything. We will rotate a flyer in there or something like that. But look at the left-hand side, Meta Business Suite. Again, Facebook change. If you @sign people in your posts, so you want to, we connect, welcome to the chamber, Bob's, garage, and we @sign them to include him. Facebook's moving you to have to use that business suite. It's just a little different. It's not that it's difficult, but you might as well get used to it because Mr. Zuckerberg says it's coming soon. So I just kind of want to alert you. All right, the next slide, we have an action plan to set up additional platforms that are needed. I should have added and delete those that we don't need. We just don't Twitter. We just don't think it's what we have. We have people on there, and I think it looks bad that we haven't posted. And then look into the free version of Social Pilot, hire someone to handle social media, or like us, 228 college interns we've had in 22 years. They are smarter than me. They are just like a sponge. Go to your college, see what you can do. We don't pay for them. We don't pay for interns, but let me tell you, they eat very well at the chamber office. And your weekly marketing checklist, I would add this on there just to sit down at one point. Wouldn't it be great just to sit down and get it all done? Now, again, we have a plan, like we have it laid out so we know what we're doing. Next slide. Website. Went to a website, hasn't been updated. We're going to go to this restaurant, and it was about 2 months ago. So I go to their Facebook page, and they haven't posted since February of 21. So I thought, well, they're not open, but their hours say they're open. Go to the website, there isn't anything new. It's all old stuff. They were open. It was fantastic. It was the best lasagna I ever had. Yet they're busy cooking food. They don't have time, and I get that, but we have to know, how are people finding us? Where are they looking? But on your website, you should have a calendar of events if you have events, and I know all of you guys have events. Testimonials from staff and customers. The best time to get that customer testimonial is when they come out of an event and they're all happy. You guys have seen it where the people are in the back and, oh my gosh, I loved, Barry Manilow. Barry Manilow is my man. I'm a fan of. So I loved him tonight. He was fantastic, or, whatever you say. Pictures and videos of the product. Here, this one cracks me up because if you have a product, okay, so I have a product in my hand. It's my customer service, change your attitude, change your underwear cup. Now, if I just said to you, you need to buy my cup, you would say, I have a picture, I have a video, I have Barry Manilow holding the cup. Yes, I do. But I have a video of the product, and I have me talking about it. I have me going through it. So if you have a product or a service, go show me how you're going to repair my computer or something. Make sure you have links to resources that work and contact information for you. All right, the next slide we have. Make sure the website is easy to read and navigate. That's so important. I'll tell you what, ordering food, that's the challenge. Table, I forgot the name of it, Social Table, I think it's called. And it's great, but it costs a lot of money, but I'm telling you what, they have it down. Any small restaurant looks like they're a big boy restaurant. It really does. Keep calendar updated. Consider video testimonies with your customers. You can put those on social media and your website, and your monthly marketing checklist should have this on it. All right, next item. Follow your reviews. Make sure you know what your customers are saying. Here are some platforms. I bet there were 30 out there, but these are the 4 that I always like to look at. Google reviews is important. That follows you around. You cannot delete a review. So if someone gives you a 1 for whatever reason, we actually had someone give us a 1 on the chamber. We were at a 5. We were at a 5 forever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he had the wrong chamber, had the wrong, it was another state. And so, man, I emailed them. I said, sir, I'm so sorry, but I do not want a 1. And bless his heart, he took it off. Yelp, social media platforms, company business websites. Let's talk about reviews though. When you have great service, I want you to give them a review. When you have great service. So when I do customer service training, I say, wouldn't it be cool if I trained your customers on how to be great customers? And everybody says, oh yeah, that'd be fantastic. Well, I have a room full of customers right here. So be good customers, leave good reviews. If you have a bad review, don't leave it. You do it in person or on the phone. There's no reason. I mean, you become a Karen, then that's what I like to say. Next one we have is an action plan to respond to reviews and add to monthly marketing checklist. All right, next item. We have human resources. So we're touching on this a little bit because this is so important. In fact, all of you talked about this. Next slide, we have staff onboarding. This is where you can shine as an employer. We have an onboarding process for our interns, and it is everything from, I did a video, you're not going to believe this. I did a video on how to use a paper cutter, how to fill a stapler, how to scan a document, how to welcome someone at the door, how to hand them their water. I did this video because they come to us untrained, they're interns, they haven't had jobs. So in that orientation, make sure that wherever the problems have been in the past, that you're covering them there. Make sure you got their paperwork and policy sign-off sheets, drugs, whatever you want to do, job description, day-to-day operations, policies and procedures. And the next one, most people don't have, customer service standards. So that's what I do when I go into a company. I say, you need to write these and staff need to live them. We need to talk about them. We need to post them and they need to sign for it. So if you don't have those, you can Google those or email me and I can help you with those, but you really do need those. And guess who needs to live that more than anything? The business owner. So just a reminder of that. When you write them, you got to do them. All right, next we have an action plan. Create and update staff onboarding. So you're always going to update that. I probably update ours every, 3 months. That's it though. So next one we have Hiring the right people. Oh my gosh, where are they? That's what I want to know. My employers want to know. If you go to our chamber website, I just checked, we have 382 jobs posted for our members. All of our chamber members can post. And so we help them, and you can post here, but there are other ways. Illinois WorkNet is fantastic. You can do a free online job fair if you want. We had a lot of success with that. Local employment training. So we have Madison County Employment Training, who are wonderful about posting jobs, helping people with interviewing skills, helping us do training. Popular local job boards, we have them all over. We just find them, we kept a list, and then we put our jobs on there. Community social media platforms, always good. And the best one is referral from current employees. So when a current employee isn't going to bring someone who's not going to be good because I don't want to work with them every day, but give them an incentive. And really, I put local high school and college job boards, band students and athletes, the best, because they know how to manage time. I'm telling you, the best. Okay, next slide. Have your pulse on the industry standard. What are people paying? Beyond the pay, what can you provide? Your local employment center might have some training money to allow your employees to get trained. They also might have college money that they want to go out to college. I know ours has 2.1 million. So we are always hoping. Apprenticeships is another great way. Keep good connections with resources. So anybody that you know in the HR field, I always just like to have a pulse on what's going on. For a long time, it was ghosting. So people would make an appointment, get an interview, and then ghost them. And I said to the employee, that's interesting. Tell me about your policy on when the employee interviews, but you don't hire them. And they're like, what do you mean? I go, well, you're ghosting them because they're sitting home waiting to find out, right? So they're like, okay, then we're going to let them know. So now they say sorry, or it's a very short, but at least that employee knows that they can keep looking. And then that's that. The next slide we have is maintaining great staff. This is the most important piece of this whole presentation. Educational funding. We actually, July 1, Illinois just passed a daycare funding bill that for 3 months will pay for daycare if someone's looking for a job or they have a job and they're 2.5 times under whatever the poverty rate is. And I don't know what that is, so you'd have to find out. But think about that. Think about getting someone and then you get to pay for their daycare. Treat them well. Period. Just treat them well. Offer competitive pay, know what they're paying. Money isn't everything. Money still is not the number one. People leave their job. They leave it because of their boss or their coworkers, never the task usually. Ask employees what they love about their job and where they see their need for improvement and assist them. That's huge. Get to know them. Next slide. We have this involve in brainstorming. So we have interns every semester, like I said, they always have great ideas. So we say to them, you know, what were the questions you were asked? How can we help people? And a lot of times they come up with a list and we ask them to continue. But here's some that I love. So I secret shop, I customer service experience at a library. And I always ask, you know, what's the number one thing people ask? And I get 18 hands raised and they say, where's the restroom? And I say, well, if you're getting that question all that time, what do you think we need to do? I don't know. People just need to know where it's at. How about more signage? So all I'm looking for is letting them tell you what the frequent questions are and help them brainstorm. So what time do you open on Tuesdays? That means the hours aren't posted. And what type of payment do you accept? That means people don't know. People don't live in that library world. That's what I say. Next item. All right, action plan. We're going to provide resources, seek educational funding, seek daycare funding, and schedule frequent individual and team meetings to discuss employee satisfaction with the job and any new ideas they might have. All right, next slide. And then this is the last one. It's quick. You as a business owner, it is important to understand as a business owner that you set the example for your staff. You need to be the example for your staff. You need to arrive to work early, go above and beyond, refrain from being negative, show excellent customer service, spend time in each position with your business, and be open to new ideas. Next slide. And the action plan is ask for constructive feedback. I have a group of women, I call them my tribe. We have a tribe. And what I love about them is they're going to tell me the yay and nay. They're not just going to say, oh yeah, no, they're going to say, oh yeah, you talked too fast during that, or at the, you know, whatever they're going to say, but they're also going to compliment me as well. So, all right, next slide. I think that's it. All right, if you have any questions, you can contact me. I wrote a book on customer service. We have a lot of that items. If you'd be interested in learning more about my business, I'd love to come. And I love training. I love people. 14,000 a year is about what I average, except during the pandemic. But during the pandemic, we really just converted to Zoom and it was fine. But it's kind of boring because, as you can tell, I have a lot of energy and then all by myself in a room. And that's it. So thank you so much for letting me speak today. I hope it was some help to some people.
Excellent presentation, Dawn. Wow, what a lot of wonderful, valuable information in a short time period. So thank you for running through all that and really making this an informational packed presentation. Wow. Well, and to remind people, a copy of this recording will be sent out. If you registered for today's event, you'll get a copy, a link to a copy of the recording, and then we'll also send out a copy of these slides. Now, within Dawn's slide here, she did have some live links, and those will be live on the PDF as well. So you'll be able to click and go to the various items that she had talked about today. But wonderful presentation, Dawn. Great presentations by all our panelists today. It's been a lot of fun. We are coming up on the hour, close to 3 o'clock. Now we're going to continue on. We hope that you can still join us. We're going to continue on at least for another half hour and jump into the Q&A section here. So to start out the Q&A section, I've got a question I think that we will give to the panel as a whole, and we'll go through in the order that people presented. And this question is actually two-part, kind of two together that I'll put together. And everybody had talked about grants. And so how did you get the information about available grants? And then how difficult was it to apply for grants? And up first, we'll go with Kim.
Sure. So I had experience in grant writing before I came to ACCI and to the theater. So I was pretty fortunate that I already kind of knew what I was looking for. We'd already done grants, even as this organization, for years. And then, of course, when the pandemic came, all these grants started popping up, which was fantastic. The interesting thing is we wrote so many grants. We would receive an award letter and we have to go back and say, okay, now what did we say we were going to do with this grant? So we were very fortunate to have a lot of success with grant writing. I think the best thing we had as far as resources with our industry within tourism and entertainment was our partners. I know some of the other panelists talked about how we all really did come together as a community, whether it was the touring agents or whether it was theaters in other communities or venues in other communities. We all were trying to help each other out. So different groups formed that would give us information about grants. We were already members of so many organizations that sent us links to possible grants. Our city here in Effingham was very helpful with pointing out anything that they saw pop that would fit for us. Same with our tourism, our office, our chamber office. And then of course, Courtney's office was kind of the same way. He would see something and send it my way. So I said, I already had kind of this grant writing background. It was just taking that and figuring out what the pandemic was going to bring as far as opportunities. And I think in the art industry, we were very fortunate where not only federal opportunities presented themselves, but state opportunities. And then of course, we were fortunate enough to even have local and regional opportunities. So that's kind of how we tackled grants.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you. An excellent answer there. Susan, do you have anything to add?
What I would say is that the art colony is so small that grants were not as readily available to us as they seem to be to some of the larger venues. We did receive recently the Back to Business grant, and I believe I think Nora contacted us through the chamber about that. But the other grants that we've been able to receive over the years have been small ones with agencies, grants available locally, where they'll have a trust or something where they can give funds to groups. The challenge is knowing about them. So if you don't know about them, I would go to another nonprofit in your area, ask how they got theirs. who it is. They'll have unusual deadlines sometimes, or they may not have any deadlines at all. And so, but usually those things too are, our experience has been that they want to spend their money on something. They don't want to give you money for to run an operation. They want to give you money for lights or supplies or something like that. So I'd say my best advice would be to keep an ear to the ground and contact your chamber, but also talk to other non-for-profits that are similar to your size.
Oh, most definitely leverage your networks and keep in touch with people. And, it's twofold too. Maybe you're able to help somebody else out as well. Right. Kristen.
Yeah, so there are arts conferences, performing arts conferences, both regional and national, which you can get a lot of information from them, like the Illinois Presenters Network, APAP, which is Associated Presenters nationally. Because we're a committee of the city, there were economic development organization locally that we were able to partner with. Illinois Arts Council is also another resource. So arts focused, obviously, but on lots of different levels. So like Susan mentioned, we went to the Chamber of Commerce and they have a tourism grant. We went to the grant that supports Illinois artists. If we had a show that was had Illinois-based artists, and got a grant there. The Department of Economic Opportunity and Commerce had a business interruption grant, so that was a state level. And then the federal government had a nasty, but we did it, grant called the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. And so they're really on local up to federal, there were grants available. National Endowment for the Arts is a really good resource for a lot of grants on a lot of levels as well.
Most certainly, most certainly. And dive into industry specific, and if there's something particular to your form business, definitely there's other businesses than just tourism people that may be watching this or listening to this, is know your industry and be able to try to obtain any resource made available to you. Dawn, would you like to answer the question?
I would.
Possibly from the chamber background too? Go ahead.
Yeah, we had $493,000 that we helped our members get for the 2 PPPs, the round of PPPs. And as
Awesome.
a chamber, we were finally able to apply at the second one for the first one. So we were able to get a little bit of money. I would recommend a couple of things. One, if you have a local university and they have master's degree programs, usually it's master's, sometimes it's bachelor's, of people who are grant writers, they need an internship. And that's what we did. We also have a 501c3 and a 6. We have a foundation, the 3. And I wrote I think I told you, Courtney, I wrote, your mom called and said, get a job and keep it and get out of the basement. And basically it starts from where to find a job, how to do a resume, how to write a cover letter, interview skills, all of that, all the way to my first day at work, how to fill out the paperwork. You guys won't believe it. Nobody knows how to fill out a W form. And then once you get a job, employee conflict, how to use the paper cutter. So we have, it's 11 modules. So I want to use that. I want to help kids get all of that experience prior, and they get a certificate at the end. And I have 450 chamber members who would hire them. Can you imagine having all these students already hired? So we are applying for 2 grants for that through Illinois to try to get it funded. All we need some professional videos, and some other things. So we've had to go through some hoops, but all of that you mentioned earlier, all of those, the Back to Business grant, I think as a chamber, our role was to make sure that they knew about them. And we called every chamber member 2 times within 16 months. And there was a lot of crying And I am happy to report that of those, nobody closed because of the pandemic. We did everything we could just to help make it work. And not that we're just a source. We're just one source. But if we were the source to let them cry, I mean, that's the role we needed to play. But for grants, they're out there. There's also a grant writer that I know, and she has almost 100% of getting the grant, but it's a little costly, but you're going to get it. So if you want that information, I can provide that to you.
Awesome. Definitely. It seems like everybody has to wear a lot of hats.
Yeah,
and the next question actually came in for you, Dawn. You had listed a lot of different action plans, and this question came in when you were a little earlier in your presentation when we were talking about social media. But if you could only do one thing, what would you do first?
You mean to pick a social media platform?
Well, and they had a second question of which social media platform do you like best? So I throw it out to, do you have a particular social media platform that you like best? I know you noted know your audience, delete the ones you don't use that you don't need, but is there one particular that you like best?
We use Facebook, and what I didn't list was LinkedIn. LinkedIn is huge. And I think I like that when we're having this women's conference coming up, offering CEUs, you're getting free headshots, you're getting sexual harassment training. Those are professionals. That's what I'm doing. But I'm not going to put my citywide garage sale on there. So I think knowing Facebook for us is probably the most popular use. We have a lot of followers. Instagram then is, incorporated Facebook. We just started using TikTok. For we have a couple of things coming up that kids, like I call them kids because I'm old, but teenagers but they're watching. And I don't know, I guess Facebook for us, but it's sure not for everybody. And if you have a restaurant, I want to see your lasagna. I want somebody to tell me how good it is. So it's really how you use it. Videos, I probably do 200 videos a year at least. I just did live Facebook while ago, live Facebook all the time. Doesn't matter if you have a good hair day, people just know that. Because it's raining here, it's pouring down rain and it's hot. But people like live videos. And once they, get on, but if you're at an event and you guys are getting ready to open the concert, that's what I'm thinking. I did the St. Louis Convention Center where they have concerts, and we talked about this. And I said, an hour before, if you still have tickets, you might want to say we still have tickets, or 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, or tour the stage or backstory. It sounds like you guys did it. That was fantastic. But I think it depends on your company. But when you decide, go out and see what your competitors have. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
What do they have? Do they have Instagram?
Where
are they using this? Yeah, absolutely. And YouTube is a really good source because Vimeo is the other one that we use to put our videos, but YouTube, you can put them out there.
Well, and to circle back, so to the original question, that was kind of a two-part what they'd sent in. You had a lot of action plans, and maybe we'll expand off that first one. So out of those action plans, if you could only do one, so you got to start somewhere. What would you start first?
The marketing plan.
The marketing.
I would put a big, huge piece of what do they call that, paper just on the wall, and I would
a banner.
And just long, like you wrap meat in it, whatever that, I forgot what it's called. That's what we do. We put it on the wall, and then we have a day, and we put dates, and we just write on there, what do we have this event on this day? We want to be 3 days out, 7 days out, 12 days out, 24 days out. We need a video here. We're going to do a live here. And then we go to the next event. So imagine all these events. We have 5 major events before November 12th. By the way, we're having Brian White here. If you know who Brian White is from This Moment On with Shania. And so, I just did an interview with Brian, and we got Brian on a cardboard cutout, and I'm taking him around town, and he's going to bartend, and he's going to be at the, dog cleaning place and whatever. So I think you have to just think about it. Here's what happens, though. You get in your own world and you don't, because I'm in my chamber world, so I have to push myself to go look and see what else is out there. I'm not a youngster here, but I have young interns who know what's hip. I'll tell them what's hip. Yeah.
Leverage your resources, get the order
They're
events, get a calendar and a schedule set together.
Yeah,
most
they
certainly.
are the smartest.
Start with social media and start marketing.
Yes.
Question back to the panel as a whole again, and a very interesting one. What would you change or implement differently if you had to do it again? And going through this time, we'll start with Susan.
It's easier to be the second. I guess my first thought was don't have COVID, but we couldn't control that. So I don't know. And
That's okay.
like I said, I think our organization too is a little bit different than what Kim and Kristen talked about, because we don't have performances. We have shows. And so but it's people coming in and walking around and looking at the photos and stuff, or the artwork.
Well, and
But
maybe I can help out here a little bit. I strongly believe in learning from other people's experiences, and that's a great thing about having this webinar today, and getting to talk to the regional businesses here, and what you guys did to pivot or change. And I know, Susan, for you guys, you started moving to more of an online presence, and potentially, is that something you would have started a little sooner, maybe?
Possibly. I don't know that we could have started it much sooner, because we couldn't even have get the artwork in here to do those online shows and for a while. But I think that if that would happen again, I think we'd start that probably as quickly as we could. And we learned some things from doing those, how we would produce it, how we would make sure that we got the word out there. I think that the online auction that we did and working with the local auctioneer was one that I think we would do in a heartbeat again if we, and we will do it again. But I think if we went back to COVID again, we'd probably look at that even stronger and see how we could up the monies and stuff like that. But then I think the other thing is that you just always continually, even when you're not doing anything, is you have to make sure people know that you're still there. And so that's a bit of a challenge, but yeah.
Excellent answer. Kristen, anything that you'd change, anything you would implement differently if you had to do it again?
Okay, I really appreciated some of Don's suggestions. Those I'm probably going to say, oh, well, I might implement those. But we need a younger audience as part of our focus, or we would like. And so what we are going to do as a change is this year, day of show, we're going to introduce a teen ticket. So it'll be, usually the child tickets are $10. We're going to do a $5 day of show for any empty seats for teenagers. So I guess I don't know what we would do that we did differently prior, but as we move forward, we want to get a little younger audience, not only the 20s and 30s, but the teens. And that might mean more surveys. It's just hard to, Facebook tends to tailor to an older crowd. I'm with you, Dawn. Tends to tailor to an older crowd. So we're working on our social presence with Instagram, and we did not do Instagram during COVID. So that's a new thing that we're going to implement.
Don't implement differently. Expand upon what you had for social presence, most certainly.
Right. Yeah.
Dawn, anything different?
We did drinking with Dawn and an expert, and it was drinking McDonald's tea. It wasn't drinking.
Oh.
I guess probably should.
So the change would be a real drink then?
We did those, and they were great. We did some mastermind groups. I might have, with the mastermind, instead of going industry, I might have went level. So I might have had a CEO mastermind group. The other thing I would have done earlier, and we did it, but I just thought it was a little late in the game, was teach people how to Zoom and teach people about backgrounds and teach people how to, we did a lot of marketing. We had 74 at our, when everybody else was like not Zooming, they're zoomed out. You have to offer people something. You can't just sit around and talk. We did 30 marketing tips in 60 minutes, January, February, March. And then in April, we took those 90, let them pick their top 5, and we went a little deeper. Oh, so, wow. And we're still doing that. We've taken a lot of things that we did then that we're using, and we've been able to get rid of things. It was a COVID ish, like we didn't want to do the Fall Fest anymore. We don't do it. It died at COVID. That's what we call it.
Understood. So, take advantage of that too. And Kim?
Looking back, I think the advice I would give to myself and my staff is just to remember to breathe. I mean, we were all so many uncertainties. We all were kind of rushing, chickens with our head cut off style, trying to figure out what to do. I wish I could go back and tell myself to breathe and then to trust the community. Our donors had us. Our elected officials had us, our patrons had our backs, the staff had our backs. Everybody came together, everybody rallied around not just our organization, but so many organizations. And I go back and tell myself just to trust that process. You know, when people got their stimulus checks, they would turn around and write us a check for that exact same amount. Like, hey,
That's
let's
awesome.
keep this going. And we had so many examples of that. And like, you know, even our lobby boxes, we have advertisements in our lobby. People renewed those, no questions asked, because, hey, we know you don't have a lot of traffic right now, but we know you need the revenue. And we saw that in so many instances. So it was a great reminder of what a unique community we have. And like I said, I really felt like the library had us, not even the community had us, but the library is a good example. We did a program with them. The Effingham Junior High musical, they came here. The Effingham High School musical, we had a social distancing thing with here. So between like the different organizations, we all reached out to each other and provided what Effingham does the best. That's come together when we need each other most. So looking back, breathe and trust the networks we developed and trust our community members and our government leaders, because we are all on the same team at the end of the day. And the pandemic just proved that. So that's the advice I'd give to myself.
A lot of great lessons here. Great lessons. Love to hear those answers. Thank you for sharing with us. We'll continue on with the questions towards the panelists, and this one might be a little different for each person, but when making your pivots, when making these changes that you've discussed during your presentations, were additional laborers needed? For example, to accommodate more one-on-one customer service or phone calls? And if so, how were you able to manage that cost? And Kristen, we'll start with you.
Volunteers.
Volunteers.
So the cost really has been negligible because we have an army of volunteers that moved from being our ushers to poster people all over the community, or making some of those phone calls. So, or helping clean the theater. So we just have, we have a nice army of volunteers. Is really, so the cost was, we're pretty frugal.
Understood, most certainly. Don, how about yourself?
I have interns I've never met in person through that whole time. Some of them didn't have a computer, didn't have a laptop. So we ended up buying one through TechSoup, by the way. And that way our interns always have one. Now it's just at the office. A couple of them didn't have the money to have internet either. They're college students. So we made sure that they had that. But beyond that, you know, we saved on mileage. There were a lot of savings that we could do from a staff point of view. We all worked at home. We didn't have to add any staff at all.
Kim?
So we didn't have to add any staff. I'm very fortunate to have an amazing team. So when we were doing these things, you know, it was me and the accountant and the development director and the ticketing director, and we were the ones that were cleaning the bathrooms, and we were the ones that were cleaning the auditorium and doing all the things. So it was very much all hands on deck, because that's what's important for the organization. So everybody in this building, we're a small staff, we are a team, and we pitch it and help each other. So no one said, well, that's not my job. I did not hear that one time from any of our staff. We all knew that everything was our job. And for us to be successful, we were going to have to step out of our normal lanes and all work together to make things happen. Some of the interesting things, though, was just trying to figure out what ideas were good and what ideas were bad. So I'm also very fortunate that our staff have very different personalities, and we purposely hire that way. I'm almost the dreamer of the group. Like, I like to dream big, and I have big ideas. My accountant is the realist of the group. So she says, well, that's a great idea, but how are we going to do X, Y, and Z? So we have a really good balance of personalities right here. And that was very crucial during that time, because everybody's so emotional. You don't want to make just emotional decisions. You want to make sure you have really good sounding boards. So our staff was awesome. We had great sounding boards. They were able to talk me out of a few crazy ideas, and I was able to talk them into a few crazy ideas. So all in all, we did good, but it was definitely, I can say I've worked every area of this building, and whether it was, like I said, cleaning the bathrooms or whatever, I've officially done it all now. So, and like I said, here we go with the next season. So we're doing good.
I love it. I love it. Susan, anything to add?
Well, once again, our organization is just a little bit different because we had a part-time person who was working for the Gaslight, and with when COVID started, she ended up having health issues, so she had to quit. But then we couldn't raise any money. We didn't have any sources of income coming in. So really, since early in the pandemic, we've not had a person on staff. It's been all by volunteers. And I think that's been maybe not as major as it might have been, because we already had passionate board members who were passionate about the art colony and making it be a success. So
excellent, excellent. Well, each of your organizations definitely help increase the quality of life in your respectable communities and beyond that too. So most certainly makes sense that it's all hands on deck, I think, as you noted, Kim, and being able to leverage your staff, leverage your volunteers, and move through things together. Love to hear it. Next question I have up is for Dawn, and more specific to Dawn, on when you were talking about the websites, you had mentioned an app, Social Table, one that easier for make it easy to order food. Is that something that we can get a link for to send out a little info on that to those that?
Yeah, it's I'll get it for you and I'll send it to you. What happens is this company creates your menu for you, and it's just so easy to order, and it makes you look like Applebee's or whomever is the big company, and you're just a little small organization, where I've seen a lot of people attempt to do menus. And you got to know, like, do you add mayonnaise? Do you have this option? Can you go here? How do you check out? And they make it. It's I'll look it up while we're sitting here, but it's table something, and I'll get that for us.
Thank you. And so any additional supplementary materials will be sent out afterwards, along with a copy of the recording of this webinar today and a copy of the slides. And our final question to you as well, Dawn, when talking about reviews, how do you encourage people to make reviews?
Well, I think that some restaurants do it with a QR code at their table. That's the one thing I have to tell you guys. In 2009, we have a magazine called The Resource. We started QR codes then. So we were QR codes when they weren't even cool.
Oh, wow.
But at restaurants, the moment is what you need. You need the review at the moment. So for example, as they're leaving the wonderful concert, if you had someone there doing, hey, could you just click here and give us a review, and whether you want the stars, whether like 5 stars, it doesn't matter, or did you have a great time? Or I think where it begins though is with the panel here, so that we begin reviewing, and I do a ton of reviews that are I never do bad reviews, because I don't think that I make contact with them, but I encourage us, if we begin here, and then we just go from there. Sometimes we get great service and we just forget, like, oh gosh, I had great service on Tuesday. As soon as I got home, I did a review on Google, because I just feel like that young girl that was managing multiple tables, we thought we were the only table that she had. And it makes her feel good, and it makes her boss feel good, and it sure looks good on the company.
Yes. And most certainly, if you're not willing to do it yourself, why would you expect anybody else to do so?
Can I address Kim? Kim, yeah. I have to tell you that we have a cleaning schedule every week, and we all do it. And I leave myself on toilets on Thursday. I do that because all of our interns are there, and our and a couple staff. And I want my interns to know that, well, first of all, 22 years when I started, it was just me, but I will do anything. There's nothing I'm not going to do. I'm never going to ask you to do anything. And that comes up every semester. One of them always say, can I ask you a question? Why do you do toilets? Why can't you just have all of us do it? And I'm like, because that's not who I am. We're a team. We work here. So, but yeah, I do toilets. I just take it. Why not? I mean, it is. So I just wanted to let her know that.
Yeah, I agree with that too. Like I said, I do all the things. And because of the type of venue we are, every once in a while we do have someone that gets sick in the auditorium. So I'm usually the first one to clean it up of the season, but I only do it once. I'm like, that was my one time. Someone has to do it next time. So I do draw the limit every once in a while. I get my one turn in. It's like, okay, someone else is up next. So, but no, I do think I agree that that's important. If you're not going to do it yourself, then it's hard to ask other people to do it. And it just sets a good example. So.
I had to clean up elephant poop during a live
Oh, no.
TV show. Yeah, it was live. We had the circus in town, and it was crazy. Yeah. You gotta do what you gotta do, and then that makes you, that's a lot. Then they're willing to jump in. Your staff's willing to jump in and do whatever it takes. Surround yourself with great people, and great things will happen.
Yes.
So Don, when the circus came to Paris, they had a bingo for pachyderm poop. So
We did too.
it's a fundraiser.
It's so funny. We did the same thing. If it landed on yours, then you won.
You were there.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lord.
yeah. Different
They
taste.
say great minds think alike. So
What are you saying about us? Elephant poop. What is that?
now this has been a wonderful Q&A section. We're getting close to 3:30. We have a hard stop at 3:30. We only had one additional question come in. I don't see any more in the chat. And this question was, did one person lead the charge, or was it a group effort? And I think we've addressed that, and everybody had a chance and opportunity to address that it was either using your staff, using volunteers, and really tapping into the community as a whole. So with that, I think we're going to end today's presentation. First and foremost, thank you to our panelists. Wonderful presentations, lots of valuable information, lots of lessons, especially coming out of the Q&A section. I've really enjoyed today, and I hope you guys have too. I know our attendees here are enjoying it as well. Again, we will send out a copy of the recording of this webinar next week to those that had registered. You'll get a copy of the slides and then any supplementary materials, and Don will follow up with you to get a few more things. We hope that you join us next month as well. That webinar is going to be Thursday, August 25th. And similar to this one, where we dive into the tourism industry, we're going to start speaking with some industrial businesses too. So hope to join us on August 25th. Visit www.ilbusinessnavigators.com, where you can see a copy of the recording for this and sign up for the next one. And with that, thank you for everybody for coming today. We hope
Thanks,
you found
Courtney,
today
for
informative.
everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everybody. Have a great day.